Welcome to the Fifth Gait Podcast. We have thrown around the idea of a podcast for years, but we finally made it happen, stuck in the truck together on a 10-hour road trip home from a horse show. Our passion is the Icelandic horse and all aspects of the worldwide community that surrounds this breed. Here, we come together as equestrian professionals to share our hardest lessons, biggest wins, and our future hopes in Icelandic horsemanship. Our conversations aim to educate, inspire, and grow all people like us who love Icelandic horses, from enthusiasts and amateurs to trainers, competitors, and field specialists. In this episode, we will be interviewing my mentor, Gudmar Petursson, at his farm Hestaland in Iceland. Guðmar is a trainer, competitor, and instructor, a graduate of Hólar University, perhaps first and foremost an ambassador for the Icelandic horse in the United States, being one of the first trainers to come promote the breed and prioritize the education of Icelandic horse riders here in the United States. Now Guðmar runs Hestaland in Iceland, where he offers an array of Icelandic horse experiences, from trekking to trail rides to educational winter workshops. We hope you enjoy this interview with Gudmar Petursson. We're going to go ahead and get started.
Yep.
And I get the honor of introducing you.
Okay.
But that's probably because you've been in my life since I was 7 years old, give or take a little bit. You're a horse trainer, a educator, I would say more broadly an educator. You breed, and now you run Hestaland, which is this full-service Icelandic horse experience company in Iceland, where you share all sorts of different aspects of Icelandic horsemanship, from trekking to just riding and educational experiences. And I want to start with a question that's just kind of a fun question that we ask a lot of our interviewees. If you had to explain to a non-horse person what you do for a living, like if you had to put it together, oftentimes horse trainers have weird jobs, right?
Yeah.
We encompass a lot of different areas in our work. How would you explain it to someone? How would you explain what you do?
To a non-horse person,
Yeah.
I guess it depends a little bit on it does depend on who I'm trying to describe it to, I guess.
Someone
But,
that doesn't know a lot.
Very little about horses.
Sometimes you just keep it simple to say I'm a horse guy, I'm a horse trainer. But generally speaking, I nowadays I think I talk maybe more about the Hestaland. We have a horse farm in the west of Iceland, is what I would say, where we train and teach and create equine experiences or equine vacations. I think I would kind of keep it to something like that if I wanted to keep it short.
Yeah, and you really cross from America to Iceland in that sense. Most of your clients are coming from the United States or Canada.
Yes, but more and more from all over the world. But yet definitely majority is from the US. Yeah, I think it's just because of my connection to the US. I obviously lived there and I know a lot of people there. And originally, the people that came here on these vacations were like my students, mostly from the US. And the word is kind of spreading. So we get people from all over the world, but definitely majority the US. Yes.
Mostly your students these days.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. So some connection. So we operate a lot through kind of partners in the US. As yourself.
Following that, just about your partnership with the US, I'd like to hear more about your experience in the US, because you were in Kentucky for 10 years. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Just about, yeah.
Yeah. And so comparing your experience running a business in the US versus here, what did you enjoy the most about running a business in the US, and what did you find the most challenging?
What did I enjoy the most about it? I liked living in the US. It was a great experience for me. I think it matured me a lot. So when I left Iceland, I was just a young rider, and I'd done quite well in competitions and stuff. And you just kind of I wanted something different, something maybe bigger than myself. I sometimes say competitions are all about yourself somehow, and you want to kind of do something, be a part of something bigger. And I kind of got this need to promote the horse in the US. So I think I got a great joy out of that, to promote the Icelandic breed there. I sometimes say when we came to the first expos, it was kind of like we brought Alien in a horse trailer. And people were like, what is this? What is this? And then now you go to expos and everybody will know it's an Icelandic horse, or most people. They might not know much about it necessarily, but they at least know that it exists. So I think I got a great joy out of that. I liked operating a business in the US. I feel like I learned a lot in many ways. I learned to be, I think, more organized. I think I learned to take responsibility for myself, kind of. US is a little bit like that. Nobody's going to do it for you. You just gotta be on top of your stuff yourself. Iceland is a little more forgiving, kind of, maybe when it comes to those things. Sometimes it's a smaller community. US is big, and you just have to kind of stand on your feet and take care of it. And I think I matured a lot in this ways. I also think it was a very good timing for me to go away kind of from Iceland, because it's sometimes, I think it's tricky to mature as a trainer in the small equine world here. At least I felt like that at that time. Competition is strong, and you're training for strong owners that want results, and I started kind of catching myself maybe doing things that I against better knowledge, just to kind of get some result or something like that. So the competition starts to kind of pull you in different directions, because I was all about competition. When I came to the US, I felt like I almost got a little bit of room to become the horse person I wanted to become, and not influenced so much from others. I also opened up my eyes to all the other horsemanships that are there or in the world. I feel like after being there, I sometimes say jokingly, but not jokingly, that it should be a rule that every young horse person in Iceland should leave Iceland for a little bit, just to see approaches and disciplines and breeds and all the other goals. In Iceland, it's always just one breed. Everybody's kind of, I don't want to say the same goal, but like similar, But then you come to the US, and you start to see all kinds of Western riding and different kind of riding, and you start to like, hey, whoa, there's all kinds of things out there. So I feel like that was a very good timing for me to kind of open up my mind, and I think it helped me a lot. Talked about challenges. Obviously, the most obvious challenge was just to be allowed to be there and work there. The visa issues. That was a big project and took years, but we did it, and I got good help, and we managed to get a green card, and now I'm a US citizen also. And then the other thing that's obvious about the US, I feel like once you're there, is like the distances, and even more. I mean, obviously the same distances today, but there were even fewer farms and further between when I was there. You easily drive, as you know yourself, 10, 20 hours to go to a show or something. Or in Iceland, you complain if it's over an hour, So I think that was like something to get used to. I kind of got into it, I feel like, and started kind of enjoying the traveling to some extent.
There's a fun and a rough side to that.
Yeah, there's
An adventure.
some adventure, but like you obviously can't do it as much. I'm going for me, and same for you. I think today it's like going to a show in the US. It's like it's a week project.
Yes,
absolutely.
Here it can be an evening project.
Yeah,
Or something like that.
must be nice.
So it's different, and those are obviously challenges. But at the same time, at least at that time, I felt it was exciting and it was fun, and you were like on a road trip and things like that. So yeah, that's what comes to mind at least.
When Icelandic horses were aliens, right, and people were seeing them for the first time, like you described, what was the thing that you feel like drew people to them the most or shocked them the most in those early days?
At the early days, I think the size thing was a bigger issue. Like people had a little bit of a harder time kind of getting over the lack of height, kind of. And it took a little time to convince people that, hey, just don't just look at the height, look at the structure of the horse. You might have an Icelandic horse right next to a much bigger horse, but the Icelandic horse had bigger chest, bigger knees, bigger hooves, bigger, everything was bigger, but it was a little bit lower. So I said, like, hey, you don't have to be so tall to be strong. They're super strong. So there was we spent a lot of time, I think, like convincing people of that. I feel like that was maybe the most kind of obvious challenge, and then maybe this not being known and the lack of knowledge about it.
Yeah.
Internet wasn't as strong, and we're not as used to just Googling everything in a minute. People were intrigued that it was something new. It took, we could say at that time, it was almost like it took adventurous people to start. The first people were very like open-minded, adventurous people, because it was totally new, and that was kind of cool. So I got to know a lot of great people, I think.
Yeah.
But then obviously the gates, the gates were intriguing to people, the smooth gates. But for me, and I think eventually, I think people picked that up quickly, was the temperament. I think is for me always the thing. I mean, there are other horses that gate, and there are smaller breeds. There's a lot of breeds out there, And there's a lot of great horses out there in any breed, but as a whole, as a breed, I feel like the temperament of the Icelandic horse is great.
Really unique. So you mentioned earlier you were a very successful young rider. You competed a lot in your early competition days. Was there a moment in your career you were most proud of in your young rider era? And maybe also a moment that you were most humbled by?
Most proud of? I don't think there's like, there is, I mean, at that time, I'm sure there was like some certain titles, some Icelandic championship titles, or I remember I was very young when I was chosen the sportsman of my town. There's a pretty big town in Iceland. Out of everybody, grown-ups and everybody, I was like 14 or something, and I was like this athlete of the town or sportsman of the, like choosing from every sport, soccer and handball and golf and everything. And it was like, so I remember there was a big moment, I was a young kid, and at that time at least the youngest who would receive that award. And it was a big festival in town and things like that. So there was, I remember that was a big thing. But I think the most humbling though is maybe not a moment per se, but I had been competing a lot and all those things. And then I went to Hólar University, and I actually started studying, like I was fortunate to do that. It was obviously different at that time too. There was not as many riding instructors everywhere, not as much knowledge available. So I think I was quite good at the competition stuff at that time. I knew the rules and the bits and the boots and all that stuff. And I was like, and I had a way with competing with horses, and that was all good. But then there's a moment that I kind of remember, or era when I started like actually studying. I went to school. I started studying from very knowledgeable people in the system, and the moment when you realize how little you know, I feel like that's the humbling moment. Is when you have all these trophies, and then you wake up one day like, oh my God, I need to learn all this, and I have all these trophies. Because when you come to school and you start to like open up your heart and your mind for studying, everybody's kind of even, there's like nobody, the horse doesn't care about how many trophies you have, you either understand him or you don't. So it's like, I think that's maybe the humbling era in my life is like, but then it becomes like addictive after that. So first you get humbled by like, you get this way, you get hit by this big wave, like, oh my God, I can learn all this. How do I not know all this? And then that becomes the thing. That becomes the addictive thing. You get more addicted to trying to figure out the horse. There's so much to figure out. It's you never somehow figure it out. It's like you're always trying more and more. Like you're always trying to learn more today know more today than you knew yesterday.
Looking at your career as a young rider and into your education, was there a person or like a mentor or a coach that helped you along the way, that maybe helped direct your path to Hólar, or even someone that has followed you from there to now?
Yeah, I think, before Hólar, it was more like the big name riders. You were like, Diddy, and at that time Atli, and these guys, they were like the most successful guys who won the most shows. Those when you're 14, 15, 16, you look at these guys and all these people, following them and try to learn from them. And I worked for some of them and things like that, and I appreciate that, and I learned a great deal. Then I went to Hólar, but I think if I have to name a name, I would probably name my main teacher at Hólar University, which was Eyjólfur Ísólfsson. He was just a big mentor to me, and still is. I try to go to clinics with him every chance I get. And even when I lived in Kentucky, he came over a few times and did a clinic for us there. Went with him to Equine Fair, and then he comes to Iceland every year, and I try to go every chance I get. If I have to name one name, I would name him. He asked me, did quite a bit of shoeing when I was younger. He asked me to shoe his horses when I was at Hólar. And I said, yes, I'll show you horses, but with one condition. You have to be there and teach me while you're doing it, while I'm doing it. So Sunday mornings we would be at the shoeing facilities at Hólar University and shoeing his show horses, and he was like telling me millimeter here and millimeter there, and move this and do this and this and that. And it was a great school, He never was, he never worked as a farrier, but he obviously knew a lot about it. I'm not sure it would matter what he's teaching you, he could teach it to you. If he knows it, he could teach it to you. So he has a very good way a very open mind of seeing things. He's studied a lot and has a very broad knowledge, which I really appreciate. So
he's one of the, I feel, great innovators or fathers of the new Icelandic way, right? Like Icelandic horsemanship has really evolved.
Yeah.
and he's one of the leaders there. What do you think about him as like has created such a kind of creative mind when it comes to training approaches and
Yeah, he was kind of, and I also think he was like the real man, as far as I'm concerned, behind creating the whole university at that time.
yeah.
He was the main teacher there and more or less lived there, or at least part-time, and he always spent some time in Europe too. But one of those, he was not the only one, but he was one of those who really opened up his mind to studying other things. So he would travel the world and study, Pat Borelli and Monty Robb, whatever the names were, the big, and see like, okay, what can we use here? What can we do? Then he would come back to Holland and kind of spread the knowledge. And he's still doing this today. He's like totally addicted to learning, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
He's always trying to pick up new things and finding new instructors and going to visit them and whatever. So I think that was such a huge change for us. And I think he was the one leading that, for me at least. And maybe obviously there's other, I don't want to, say it was only one guy. There was more people obviously involved with this, but this is how I look at it. And he was the one who kind of really opened up the eyes, opened up the doors to different things, and we started applying all kinds of methods from all kinds of breeds to help us, which are still being used today, a lot of them.
We have one more question in this kind of personal story segment before we move on to shop talk, and that is, what is the most important horse in your career or life, if you can think of one?
Good or bad?
And it can be good or bad.
Taught you the most?
I think the obvious answer to this is Thruster, my stallion that I had in the US.
I'm happy you said that.
He was just a very unique horse. He was an amazing horse. He wasn't the most simple horse or the most easy horse. And sometimes he would challenge me and you and everybody a great deal. But he was, at that time, a unique horse, I think. And I was very fortunate that he had him and imported him to the US. It was not easy at that time. And I think also what I ended up kind of managing to do in the US was in big ways thanks to him, because he was the reason that people noticed me. People did not see me first, they saw him, and then they saw who was on him. I think that's kind of how it worked. And that's how it, because he was so outstanding kind of in that time. He great pace and a huge expression. He was big and beautiful, especially for that time. And I think he was like 14 two hands.
Yeah.
And at that time, they was very big and black and super fast and powerful. And everybody's like, whoa, what is this horse? Who is this horse? Who is this horse? And then I kind of got a right to that. And I think he kind of put me aside a little bit, in that sense. And I was able to build on that a little bit. So I think that's probably the name that always comes to my mind. Maybe also because it was a very important part of, important time in my life, things were changing and I was kind of figuring out myself too. And, but there's other horses too, obviously great horses. Like How Fitty was a horse I had before him that I competed on a lot in Iceland and did great things with him. It was a unique horse in that sense. How Fitty from Thinkness, he was a 4-gaited horse that we bought. I competed on him in Landsmót I think it was Landsmót and was in some younger classes and did very well, and then 4-gait and everything. And then I turned him into a 5-gait horse, and he was my 5-gait horse at Hólar. He was turned back into a 4-gait horse for my sister, and he was just an extremely talented horse. Could be a 4-gait or 5-gait or 12 horse, whatever, and just a unique horse in many ways. But if I would name a name, I think it would be Thruster. He owns a big part of my heart.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I ended up taking over Thruster in his older years, and he was the first horse I learned how to ride 5-gait on. And like Guðmar said, he was extremely powerful, so I didn't always have any control, but he taught me so much. And really, I do have to say, I think for marketing the Icelandic horse in the US, of all the horses, he's really did the most.
Yeah, I think so. He was the flagship kind of for so long time in a way,
really
and he would pace through the arenas. Everybody would notice it. And it was like at that time, and maybe still today, we always believe that you learn more from the powerful horses than the lazy horses.
Yes.
Maybe at that time we were more brave to put the kids on the powerful horses. Maybe we think twice today, but so I think for that reason he taught me a lot, and therefore you a lot too.
Yeah. I even think that when we asked you this question, he was maybe your close second.
Yes,
Answer.
although I did mention Brynja, which was the first
Yeah,
horse
yeah.
we sold.
Yeah.
She was very special to me too.
Okay, so now we are transitioning to training or shop talk.
Mhm.
We've touched on this a little, but we'll dive into it a little more. So, since you have a unique experience as a professional in the US and in Iceland, we'd like you to sort of compare the horsemanship but that you see in Iceland and in the US. First, looking at the US, what do you think is the biggest strength that American riders bring to horsemanship mindset, and what is their biggest weakness?
Yeah, I think the things that come to mind as a strength would be probably the versatility that the versatile mind they bring to the game. Kind of, there's so much to offer there. There's so many different approaches to horsemanship, and I like that. I like the fact that there's more than one way of enjoying horses, enjoying horsemanship. There is a path for so many different kinds of people enjoying horses, making a living from horses, or whatever. So I think that's like the strength, at least of the US, and therefore maybe the US trainers. I think US, for me, the way I see the US is in a very simple way, somehow, or simplified way, is that you kind of have the best and worst of everything in a way. Like,
Oh no.
maybe we shouldn't go too deep into that, but you have great things of almost everything, but then you see things that you're like, oh. So I think you have great horsemen there, obviously, and many of the big name horsemen come from the US, good at promoting and marketing, so they've been able to make a lot out of themselves there. But you also have things in certain horsemanships, I don't know how detailed you want to get, but like that we all know are just plain wrong, like there's horse industries there that are way behind and need to really look inside and think about what they're doing.
Especially in the gated horse industry. The gated horse industry specifically in the US is
Yeah, looking into that, did you find that you were up against some like misconceptions when you were introducing Icelandic horses because of the stereotype that gated horsemanship brings?
A little bit, yes, a little bit. Especially when it came to putting something on their legs, like light boots or small pads to protect their feet, or just a little bit like we have this very strict rules of playing with some weights to help the horse with this balance. But other breeds don't have any rules at all, almost. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. And that's like as soon as we started, having some protective boots or something, sometimes people would like start comparing us to something else. But not much. I kind of smelled it a little bit, but it wasn't much at all, for sure. So I think like there is in the gator horse world, part of the racehorse world, you could also criticize, and more. But then you have also great things. You know what I mean? So I think that's like from general terms, this versatility of this kind of everything is possible kind of mind. There's always way of doing things, and there's like so many options, and you have different ways to go and things like that. I like that.
it's a land of extremes.
Land of extremes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're very right. And the best and the worst is what you see.
Yeah, that's the kind of it's land of the extremes, and I think like that's maybe that answers both questions. I got out of this one easy. That's the best thing and the worst thing.
The best and the worst is the best thing and the worst thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now comparing Icelandic riders and the kind of horsemanship that you see here, what do you think is their strength that sort of complements what American horsemanship looks like, and then what is their weakness?
You mean in
The
Iceland?
biggest weakness? Yes, in Iceland, yeah.
So I think like in Iceland, our strength, has been for a long time. The horse is very close to us. The horse is very much integrated into our culture, right? So it's unfortunately, I think, changing a little bit, or like getting a little bit further away from some people. But like it was almost everybody had been exposed to the countryside and therefore horses. Like most kids would be in the countryside that summer, or be at least around horses and animals and things like that. So it's very kind of has been historically the horse kind of big part of the culture and very kind of accepted. That's a strength in certain ways. This kind of this connection to nature in a way. I mean, the way we take care of them, the way we approach them as a horse, the way we keep them in big farms and big herd. There's a lot of good things like that. As far as riding and training goes, there's obviously fantastic horsemen in Iceland, horse people, and getting better and better. Education is more available. We're mixing together now natural riders with a lot of education, so you get really good people out of that. In the old days, it used to be believed that you're either born a rider or not a rider at all. That has obviously changed. So there's a lot of people now that have been exposed to horses at a very early age, but then they have a high level of education and knowledge on top of that. So that's like you create something great there. They become very good at what they do because it is relatively, for the reason I mentioned, but also like I mentioned before, it's like this. There's only one kind of horse here. There's only one kind of horsemanship in a way, and everybody has a similar goal in that sense. So it becomes quite specialized. We have unbelievably good pace riders that specialize in pace riding, and others specialize maybe in tote riding, or at least the Icelandic horse.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's a little bit of the weakness. It's like, as I mentioned before, I feel like people sometimes forget that we are on a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and there's only a few people here, and quite a few horses though, compared to how few we are. But there is just like, this is how it has been decided to be, kind of. We created some rules about this, and breeding goals are great, and we're following these things, but there are so many other things in the world, kind of, and I feel like it's so good for people to open up their eyes. I remember at some point being at Equestrian Fair with some great riders from Iceland, and we were watching some demo, and there's some cutting or some Western cutting clinic or something going on a demo, and the horses just like, as they do, keeping their head low and kind of doing their thing, and this trainers, friends of mine, look at this and say, this horse is like low raised and no leg action. Like, what's the point here? And he just walked out. I was like, dude, it's like, so our goal is, high raised, a lot of leg action and a lot of speed, right? But there are other breeds that have different goals and for different reasons. And it's just so healthy to open up your eyes to this and see a little bit, okay, we are not every breed is expecting the same outcome.
Yeah.
Obviously, horsemanship is horsemanship, and a horse is a horse, and there's a lot of things that apply to everything. But then when it comes to these final goals and breeding goals, things can be different. So I feel like that can sometimes create a little narrow mind,
Yeah.
not to be exposed to any of those things. Just like the way we do it is the way to do it, and everything else is just crap. I guess I felt like that myself at some point until I realized, like, wait a minute, this is pretty cool. What this cowboy horses do, that's really cool, man. They go fast, they spin, they do. It's like there's a lot of cool things out there, and very difficult things, and very, things that take a lot of training and practice, even though it's nothing like what we want for it.
Yeah.
So, off topic a little bit. If you were to be a trainer in another discipline, what would you do?
I've gotten this question before, and I'm not sure I even know the answer. I think I would be tempted to say some kind of Andalusian, Lipizzaner, something like that, maybe. At least that would be one of the things that I would be interested in. I like the lightness and the elegance there. I'm not sure it would be in other gator breeds, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I at least maybe not. Not that the breed is not great, but I'm not sure I would want to. I think like they have a lot to learn when it comes to training and horsemanship.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I would probably stay away from that. As where I stand today, I think Western riding is fascinating too. I like that style. I think it's, like I said, very different goals, but practical in some ways, or comes from at least of it. A lot of it comes from practicality, and I think that's kind of cool. I remember one time in the US, I almost became a part owner of a Frisian horse.
I almost became.
Yeah, I had a friend that wanted to buy one kind of for me. We were going together, and I was going to train it, and we were like really close to buying it. We would have bought it. I wanted it to be a stallion. I don't know why. We almost bought this horse, but then we found there was a gelding. We're going to keep looking, and then it kind of faded out. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I'm not sure that's what I would want to be. I think that's too heavy for me, kind of. But so there's a lot of fascinating things, but I think ultimately there's like great individuals in many other breeds and great horses out there. But somehow as a whole, I would say the Baroque kind of riding, Andalusian Lipizzaner, or maybe even Western, I would consider.
I think it's just so interesting with Icelandic culture. There's a lot of pride and a lot of like joy in the Icelandic horse discipline here in Iceland. There's a lot of leadership there and a lot of dedication there in the community. But it's interesting that you mentioned there's that risk of the tunnel vision, that almost
A little bit.
island goggles. But on the flip side, like you mentioned, Eilur Ísólfsson, yourself, right? There's also tradition within that of going out and borrowing and exploring and bringing those things back to Iceland and integrating them. I think that's actually one of the strengths of our community.
Well, and what I loved what you said, how the nice thing about sort of the isolation of Iceland is that it sort of creates this funnel for specialty.
Yeah.
And that is its strength. And it's true because you all are outstanding in what you do because this is all you do and you're surrounded by it in quite a more immersive way than you're going to get anywhere else.
Right. I think no other breed going to distract you in that sense.
No,
so
that's true.
So that's true. And but having said that, yes, as you said, there is obviously, we have seeked a lot of knowledge, and thankfully so, because I think Icelandic horse training is actually turned into a very good horsemanship in general, compared to other gaited breeds and whatever. And I think that is thanks to people like Eilur and more of those people that seek knowledge and from other respected disciplines. And really like made sure we did not get stuck in the 50s or whatever, and like we really moved on and upgraded and Icelandic horsemanship and riding, like you see the best riders and trainers in Iceland, it's a very high level riding, whatever you compare it to. You know what I mean? Compared to dressage or any of the most respected disciplines, these are extremely high level capable riders, and they could do any breed probably they wanted to. So I think that's it's fascinating how that has happened, and I think that's also thanks to that, talking about strengths of Iceland, thanks to how small everything is here. Like it's a tiny place, right? So it's not far to get the knowledge. Like there's riding instructors everywhere. We have these stable neighborhood communities. We have equine college here, or university, and another agriculture university with some equine line, and there is like just a lot of there's access to a lot of really good knowledge here, and the word spreads very fast. So it's like
from one coffee table chat to the next
chat. There's no if something new comes, everybody's going to know about it. So it has developed quite fast, and I think that's also part thanks to Hólar and Eilur and other people.
We're going to pivot a little bit and talk about your primary work in Iceland now is offering these experiences, particularly taking clients on treks, which is a tradition here in Iceland. I have found that riding in Iceland changes my horsemanship. Even now, every time I come, just going on a trek, riding out in Icelandic nature changes who I am just a little bit. Every time opens up a new feeling for me. What are 3 things that you think riders can really take home with them from those experiences, or 3 things that you've seen change in riders as they come and experience Iceland in that way?
Yeah, so we start here in the beginning. So creating experiences, I think that's kind of what got me started with this. It's like, it was a good point you had, it because I've always, we've been doing these shows in the US, for example, as Nights of Iceland. That's like creating experiences. I came to Iceland and I created some show here, and it was called Fákasel, and that was what drove me there. Was this the kind of I enjoy that. I enjoy the all-around creation of experiences, anywhere from the whole package, not just the riding, but everything. And that, I feel like it's a very rewarding and a fun job to have. And I said at some point, if somebody wants to pay me for doing that, that's great. I'm happy to do that. So it's like, I think that's like the kick I get out of it is to create the experiences and do it as well as possible. As far as what the tracks do is few things. I think it's obviously there's practical things, just like you're in the saddle for a long time, right? So you ride for hours and hours, which is not something. Yeah, you might ride many horses, but just to get in the saddle and be there things often just change right there. You have to figure out something, you have a long time to figure out, you have to figure out your seat. You're not just hopping on and off all the time, and you're going over all kinds of terrain. I see the seat often change for people, especially the less experienced people. You see it more dramatically, and I think it's true with more professionals too. You get sometimes you get into very technical robotic riding, almost like in the arena, and you're like thinking about all these things, and then sometimes it's good just to stop thinking and start riding.
Yeah.
Shut up and ride, like somebody said. Like just like put your ass in the saddle and just go. And then you start to feel that your hips can move a different way, or so, something is like something changes, and you start to get into some kind of groove. That's one thing, like a very practical point of view. The other thing is this. I feel like I honestly believe so much in this kind of connection to nature. There's like there is some kind of grounding that happens. There's some kind of some people talk about like there's something happens when you take your feet off and walk barefoot on the beach or something. There's like some studies that say like you somehow changes you. I believe it's something similar here. For me, there is no better way. I'm never more present than when I'm on a track. Like you're going through daily life and there is like 10,000 things going on at the same time, and this one's asking this question and calling this and answering an email and everything is happening, and it's harder and harder in today's society to be present. And people are doing yoga and all kinds of things to try to get this back, right? To somehow have a moment in your day where it's just where you just be. It's very hard in today's society. You have all this social media and everything is like ding, 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 ding. Everything's happening. On a track, when you're out there, potentially in the middle of nowhere with a loose herd of horses running with you, you have to be present. Like you are kind of almost forced to just be there and nowhere else. And your mind starts going and your mind starts thinking, because like finally there is some space to get ideas and whatever. So I think it's that part, and you're in nature, and then obviously even for me, I think it's so beautiful. Even if I see it all the time, you're up on some mountain road and you're looking over the hill and the beats and whatever, and you're just like, whoa, this is really pretty, and you get somehow humbled by that. You get a little bit humbled by nature. Of course, it can be rough. It goes through lava fields or whatever. It's just, this is the real stuff. This is not groomed trails. You have to think about every step you take, kind of, and get into a groove with it. So I feel like it's this element of being present, being there, here, right now, with the horse. And I feel like I think about it like we are traveling with the horses, not on the horses. And there's a big difference for me. We're not using them as a way of transportation. We are traveling with them. So we're taking care of them. We are keeping an eye on them, but at the same time, we're not babying them. They're amazing animals. Like they are so fit and so strong and so sure-footed. Obviously, they make mistakes, but like most people that do this for the first time, they're like in awe over the horses, like what they are capable of. And without going too far with them, because they're all in great shape, and for them it's almost like you feel like I'm surprised, like they've been riding hard for quite a few kilometers, and we stop and the horse just like 20 seconds, he's done, he's ready. He's like he evened out his breath. Like the shape they can get into, the strength and what they can do is amazing. I somehow feel like it's this connection to nature, this connection to being present, and this being with the horse out there that reconnects you somehow. But there's we keep them in the, and it becomes so right somehow for the horses. They're together, they're in a group, they like to be together, and it becomes so normal and natural to them. Like horses are a herd animal, right? And what you see in today's training, and it happens in my place and probably your places too, it's like we don't put them out with anybody because they could get hurt, and we have to be super careful with this and that, and before we know, we have a horse that's in a stall alone. He's in a paddock by himself, and he doesn't interact with other horses. This is not what they're meant to do. I mean, this is not where they come from. But if you go to the fancier training stations, this is probably how it is in many places, because we are too worried about putting them together because they're extremely expensive and the vet bills are bad, and you don't want to take any chances. So you end up with horses that are isolated in a way. Maybe they have one friend or something, and we try to do our best to make sure they're used to somebody. But the tracking is different. You have a herd moving, they're all together. That's what they've kind of would probably always prefer to do. Do they get hurt? Yes, they do. They do kick each other a little bit, and they get a little bit hurt, because they don't get along or something. They're figuring it out. But it's still somehow something so natural and right about it. And I feel like we're a little bit stepping back into the origin somehow.
With the trekking.
With the trekking a little bit, yeah. And then the other thing maybe to mention is, like you're saying, what the riders get out of it is like horse sense. Like you have to be thinking that, like, what's the horse gonna do? Like, is he gonna turn there? Is he gonna trip over this? Is he gonna choose this way or that way? Or what is he gonna do? And you start like becoming one with your horse because you spend a lot of time with him, and you start thinking like a horse in a way.
Well, especially with the loose herd, because the loose herd can get ideas
Very
of their
quickly.
own.
Thinking all kinds of
Experienced
ideas.
that yesterday, and then you are definitely going with the horses.
Yes, exactly. So it's
Quite
like that.
literally.
I think that is probably a big part. It's like you start to really see the horse as a horse,
Yes.
which you maybe don't do when you take your horse from the stall to the arena and back to the stall.
Yes.
It's very different.
Yeah.
So I feel like it has some kind of purpose like that. But I think tracking, like anything else, you can do it well, you can do it not so well. It's a thing. It's a skill. You have to. It's not for everybody just to get up and do a track. Like you have to kind of know what you do.
Okay, so another question about the trekking. I have just been in awe of how many details have been considered. And I know that just in the whole system that you have laid out when it comes to the track, also when it comes to the whole experience, like you guys have obviously not only done this many times, but you have been very considerate in just every detail of the experience.
Both in caring for people and horses.
Yes, like just your level of preparedness when everything changes moment by moment. I wanted to ask you, because how long have you been doing this?
I mean, doing it myself, I think I figured out the other day, like operating them myself for 12 years. And
Okay.
before that, I did it with, did it with others.
Okay, so how long do you feel like it took you to get to this point where you felt, for the most part, well prepared for things to go wrong, as they do?
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm still learning every day. I mean, yeah. We're always because it's the same with this as any other horsemanship. I think you will never know it all.
Yeah.
And I am changing things every year a little bit,
Okay.
little tweaks here and there. But I think I was fortunate in this case that, like, when I lived in the US, I realized that the Kentucky summers were extremely hot, and it was very nice to be in Iceland in the summer. So with friends, I started this business called America to Iceland, which took people to Iceland and some experiences in Iceland. From there, we started taking people on some tracks, but then the tracks were operated by other outfitters. I worked through a company called Hestaland at that time that had many kind of outfitters working, the kind of group of contractors kind of. So and we did this for a few years, and I got an opportunity to track with some of the most experienced trackers at that time before I started operating it myself. I wasn't sure I was going to do that myself, but that's kind of when I started getting into it, because those people were very experienced. They knew what they were doing, and I started kind of enjoying it, and they were great people and fun to be with. But I also kept my eyes and ears open, and I started making mental notes of, like, oh yeah, I would do this a little differently. This I really like, but no, I wouldn't do this like that. So I kind of was picking and choosing a little bit where I thought we could do a little bit differently or maybe better. They probably were doing the same, and then what I really liked about each thing. And so I had kind of good idea when I started, like, okay, I want to do it like this and like that. And for example, those preparation days we take, those I think were key. Explaining to people what's about to happen, and little things like that. So I was kind of fortunate like that. I didn't have to learn it all the hard way. I kind of I was involved with it before, but I could say that. Thanks for saying that. I feel like we have a pretty good system going, but having said that, I also feel like we are constantly trying to improve.
Okay.
I think we should transition to some of the future of horsemanship questions. And this is one of our favorite parts of the podcast, and probably the part that we've enjoyed asking people and hearing people's opinions about. Our first question in that section and we've covered this in some detail, but I want to ask it more directly, is we also like to hear some of the negative things, just because we don't learn unless bad
Mhm.
things happen. We don't improve unless we recognize what we need to improve on. So, what do you dislike most about the horse industry in the United States and also the horse industry in Iceland? Continuing that theme of comparing and contrasting. If you had to pick one thing you could just
Yeah,
change
I think I
tomorrow.
could just say that in a simple answer here is like, I think probably what I have, what's the hardest part maybe in horsemanship in general, maybe more so in the US, happening a little bit in Iceland, but we're kind of behind in that sense in a good way, is that lack of, or maybe we can call it in a one word, like humanizing a little bit, when the horse is approached from the human's point of view instead of from the horse's point of view, right? So, well, I want to give my horse a great day today, so I'm going to take him to the spa. No, your horse doesn't enjoy the spa. If you want to give your horse a great day today, put him on the green field and leave him alone. I mean, that kind of very simplified term, or simplified explanation is kind of like, I believe in horse care is always first, whether it's on the track or somewhere else. Horse safety, horse care, horsemanship. I think horsemanship has to come before everything. And horsemanship means understand your horse, take care of your horse, know when he needs a break, know when he's feeling good, know when he's feeling bad, know when his feet is swelling, his leg is swelling up and needs a break, whatever. That taking care of the horse. For me, that's horsemanship. On top of horsemanship, you can become a competitor or whatever else you want. But first you have to become a horseman or horse person. But I really believe in that, and I really love my horses, and I like to care for them the best I can. But I want to do it from their point of view as a horse, right? So I feel like we are facing today a little bit people starting to have strong opinions on horse care, but from the point of view of themselves. And this is a little bit, problematic, or can be, because, we don't want to treat our horses like humans. They are horses, and they should ideally be allowed to be with other horses and have some space to move. And when they get too old to not thrive and hardly be able to eat and not be able to move, we should give them the respect of letting them go, put them down, not try to keep them alive for us.
Yes.
Things like that. And I think this is, I remember this one time, just to kind of try to put this in perspective. I remember this one time, there was some kind of writing up about in some kind of social media or something, or some politician in Iceland who left Reykjavik in January or whatever, maybe the first time, I don't know. And this person came across horses living outside, and there was a winter storm. And they all had their backs into the storm like they do. They just kind of line up. They know exactly how to deal with this. They backed up into the storm and they had some shelter or whatever. And they just waited for the storm. And this person was starting to write some articles about how outdoor keeping horses should probably be banned or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't we first ban the indoor keeping before we ban it's like if I was a horse, I would rather want to be out there even though the weather's bad than closed in a small stall all the time. You know what I mean? Like some happy medium is probably best. But if you take the extremes, I think we are unfortunately getting a little bit of this that don't come from people that actually understand horses.
Yeah.
But they come from good-hearted people. They come from a good place. These are not bad people, don't get me wrong.
No.
They just don't quite understand the horse. That's how I look at it. So I feel like this is something that is not over with, and we have to think about how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think we've talked about that too, how you said it's good intentions.
Good intentions, absolutely.
Just the wrong
Just
goal.
not coming from the right knowledge or the not right understanding, kind of. And it always comes from the same idea. It's like, I wouldn't want to be out there in the storm, so why would the horse want to be there?
Yes.
But he's not built anything like you. Well, I mean, he is a totally different animal,
Yes.
literally.
Yeah.
So we have to understand the horse, where it comes from. Of course, they have to be taken. Don't get me wrong. Horses outside have to be taken care of. They have to have shelters. They have to have food. They have to have water. There's some very strict requirements that we have to meet for outdoor horses. But if those things are met, then I think it's great.
Yes.
So going back to your trekking and thinking about, I guess, the role it plays in just overall horsemanship and society and what it offers society, what value do you see trekking and riding in Iceland in general play in a world where we struggle to maintain our social license to operate?
For, as I mentioned before, for the human beings, I think like it is this kind of reconnection. And I have this one story. A friend of mine who been coming here every year for many years, and he was stuck in a, or he didn't know it at that time. He was in a job he didn't like at all, and he came on a trek and the time of his life, and was out in the middle of nowhere. And make a long story short, he flew home, picked up his phone, called his boss, quit the job, called another guy that offered him a job, and switched his job, and he's like in a great position now. And it was some clarity that came to him out there somewhere. It didn't come to him in traffic driving to work every morning. You know what I mean? So it's like this kind of the clariness, this kind of reconnection, this kind of grounding that I think it does for people. Obviously, this is just like a silly example, but this kind of gives you an idea. Right? Social right to operate kind of, I think for me, it is a very natural way of doing horsemanship. You know what I mean? Like the horses are together. They are in a group. They are doing what they are kind of meant to be doing to some extent. As I said before, you can do it well, you can do it badly. It's like same with everything. It is a very important part of our culture in Iceland, and I think it is something that is unbelievably important to be able to share. I don't think we can do this anywhere else in the world. I think it's going to come to light, kind of, that it's like that, or I think like we are going to slowly see more and more what, if we do it well and we plan it well, that this is horse friendly. Horses kind of get into it and like it in a way. But I think it's like with this, as anything else, it's not always a question of what you do, it's a question of how you do it.
Yes.
Right? Whether you're doing trekking or competition riding or breeding, whatever it is, I think we can do all those things very well. We can do all those things very poorly.
I think that's a great distinction.
Me too.
There are some things that are a full stop no, but the way that things are executed matters. And I think we're moving into a phase in horsemanship where it's going to matter more and more.
Yes, where that's going to be the most important question.
It helps people understand horses as horses. And I think that's a fundamental approach.
Yeah.
I think we should end there.
I think we should too. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you guys for coming.
Offering us this time so we could interview you, and also hosting us at this wonderful place.
Great.
We definitely recommend it to all of our viewers and listeners, and come with us if you want.
Yes, absolutely.
And maybe we'll be back again.
Thanks, guys.
I'm sure we'll have you back on again
Yeah.
if you're willing.
I mean, we already have many more questions that we didn't get to cover.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Fifth Gait Podcast. I know you've heard this on other channels, but it really is so important that you like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening through, or all of them for that matter. We would also love to hear from you on social media. Please send us ideas, suggestions. Let us know what you're enjoying right now so we can continue to make content you want to watch and hear. Thank you again for your support, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Fifth Gait Podcast.